Welcome. Glad you have come to our first Residents Association meeting of the year. Welcome to those of you who are here and to the millions who are watching out there on channel 1341. I know with the new year and the new offices you expected everything to be different, but some things have to be the same. That is the reading of the fire code. In the event the fire alarm should sound, please remain in the auditorium and stay seated. Should there be a need to evacuate, a Springmore staff member, and I assume that's Brandon, will direct you where to leave in an orderly fashion, how to leave. Please remember to use the elevator, not to use the elevators, and to go to a red pole once you are outside. I also invite you to silence your cell phones as we begin. I'm indebted to the previous officers of the association for work they have done and for preparing us to take our role as leaders as officers and the executive committee. And I would like to recognize Peg Bedini, past president. Where is Peg? I thought I saw her. So would you stand? And thank you. Thank you for 2 years of service, and we look forward to your continued service as past president and working with us. You've noticed a new appearance of the Springmore Herald and a new editor, and Betty Harris is here. Would you stand? I think we introduced you, but we all need to get to know her. And she welcomes your input and sharing insights and things you're interested in having in the newspaper. As we look to the new year, the Residents Association is your gathering. We're all members of the association. The goal of the association is to provide community, to provide information, hopefully some enlightenment, and also entertainment of the various activities as the year goes along. So part of the information will come with some announcements that, Brandon, do you have comments you want to make to us?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Come forward.
All right, Happy New Year, everybody. Good. It's good to see everybody. It's a huge crowd, so this is really good. So I know there's a bunch of people watching at home on 1390, is that right? 1341. That's an old radio station I used to listen to, 1390, an old AM station. So, so glad. I know a lot of people are tuning in. So I won't be long. I just want to address one thing, and then I'm going to give 2 updates. And then if you have any further questions or anything you want to talk about, please come see me or send me an email. But just wanted to give you a couple of quick updates. The first one, I know it's been caused a lot of chatter. It's about the guest prices for the meals. I know a lot of people have kind of been concerned about that. So I wanted to just go into that in a little bit of detail, but not too grave a detail, and I can explain more. But I've talked about this before, so I hope this will help you, maybe relieve you a little bit. But the reason we've increased the guest meal prices is the food costs continue to rise, and we set our budget back earlier last year. So we've allotted y'all $16.90 a day to eat a meal. So in order to protect y'all and make sure that you're not going over, that we've increased guest meal prices by $5 to $22 if you choose to bring them. The good thing is that you can use your meal card just like you do now, or guests can pay, or you can pay out of your pocket, but you have the option to do that. That's very common at places to have an upcharge for guests. And it's something I don't like to do, but it's something I thought that was kind of small to help out with rising food costs where it hopefully won't affect y'all very much. And the main reason for that is I think that most of y'all carry a balance every month, if not probably all year. Is there anybody in here that ever goes over their food allowance? Okay, we got 1 out of about 100 in here, so that's for Mr. Mack. So that's really where it would affect you. It's not going to affect you if you don't go over your meal allowance. We have 22 services that at Springmore listed in our disclosure statement, and all that's included in your monthly service fee. So you pay your monthly service fee, and everything's included. Things like maintenance, housekeeping, grounds, all of those items. So in the residence and care agreement, we have 1 meal per day. If you don't eat it, that's fine, but you can't not pay for it. It's just like housekeeping. If you say, I don't really need housekeeping, that's fine. They don't have to come, but we can't give you a discount on it. It's all inclusive. That's the way our contract is set up. It's an all inclusive. We're not a fee for service. So in your contract is 1 meal per day. Years ago, each year we take the cost of 1 meal per day in the dining room, and whatever that is, we times 365 days, divide it by 12, and that gives you a monthly flexible spending allowance. So if you broke down your monthly fee, you would see you pay $300 in housekeeping, $200 for maintenance, $400 for food, whatever. You could break it down to the penny. Well, that's how much you get for 1 meal. We just put it in flexible spending dollars so y'all can spend it whichever way you like. So you're not, and everybody says, well, what happens to the money that I lose? It doesn't, there's no money that goes anywhere. It's what Judd used to call funny money. You've already paid for it. It's just a portion of your fee, and we've carved out a certain dollar amount for y'all to spend flexibly. So again, it's like, well, I don't use the pool, I want my money back. Where does it go? It doesn't go anywhere. It just goes to the upkeep of all of Springmore. So all that's to say that the $22 is just, it will be added on. It's just, instead of paying $16.90 if you bring a family member, it'll be $22. And all that is in our contract, even on page 71. The monthly service fee will include 1 nutritionally well-balanced meal a day. So I don't know if that helps answer your question or not, but we've basically increased $5 to help keep y'all's costs down. And the fact that we know that not many people, about a 1 out of how many in here now, ever go over your meal plan. And if you're on the reduced meal plan, you lose it. It goes back every month. If you're on the regular meal plan, it carries over, and it carries over, and it carries over. So more than likely, the $22 will never affect you. But if you use it a lot and you have guests and you do go over, well, that's where we've got to make up that money. So hope that answers your question and why we had to do that. On good news, 2 cool things. Our large bus, our 22-passenger bus, it is going to be going into the shop in Charlotte for a week, and we're getting a brand new top-of-the-line air suspension system on the bus. We're getting the AV system fixed. We're sealing the exterior. It's got some leaks right now, so that should be a much, much smoother ride. It should be like brand new. So, all right, good. All right. I save all this stuff for last, so yeah. All right, good. So that's really exciting. And we've heard that. I rode on the bus. It is pretty bumpy. So we're taking it down to Charlotte. It'll be out of commission for a week. So it'll be much, much better. So that's great news. The second news is even better than that, in my opinion, is we're getting a brand new wheelchair bus. A brand new wheelchair bus, and ours has pretty much had it. We've got our money's worth out of that thing. It's probably 25 years old. But the best part about the new wheelchair bus is it's going to be the same size, it carries the same amount of passengers, but there's going to be no lift in the back. It's going to be lower to the ground, and there's a ramp that's going to come down where you would board the bus. So there's no more steps, and there's no more lift. So anybody should be able to get on the bus without having to step up anywhere. So it'll be more versatile for everybody. It'll be brand new. We're getting it out of Chicago. So anyway, that will be in about the next month or so, Brad. Hopefully in about the next month or so. We got a deposit on it. We're going to be picking it up soon. And we're actually driving it back. So anyway, but I thought I'd share that with you. That's some good news. If you have any other questions, you know where I'm at. So thank you.
Brandon, while you're up, would you tell us about your new office assistant?
Oh, sure, yes. Yep. So I don't know if everybody's met Jessica Linares. She is our new business office manager. This is her second full week. She's been here about 2.5 weeks. The week after, between New Year's and Christmas, she came on board, and she's doing a fantastic job. I hope if y'all haven't not met her, please go in and say hello to her. I know a lot of people have came in already. She's a very nice lady. She's going to do a great job, and I'm excited to have her. She'll be helping with the endowment, just as Holly did and Tracy did before that. So Mr. Page and others already met her. So please come in and say hello to her. I think she's going to be a great fit for us.
Thank you. Now, I think most of us came today to hear our speaker, and so I would like to invite Jim Epps to introduce the first woman that I see most every morning when I wake up. And I'm sure my wife understands what I mean. So, Jim.
I want to know where Barbara is. If Elizabeth is the first person you see every morning, where is Barbara?
Still asleep.
Brandon, I'd like to say that I am sure that everybody in here is looking for a nice, smooth ride. Am I right? Okay, good. Thank you so much for doing that. It's really my pleasure to present to you and to welcome Elizabeth Gardner to this facility, to Springmore. Elizabeth is a friend of mine, and I got to know her through the YMCA. In addition to watching her as you do and listening to her on TV. Elizabeth, I want to tell you that Elizabeth started working at the WRAL in 1999. That's 20, how many years? 25 in March. I was 25 one time. I can't remember it, though. Elizabeth received a regional Emmy for Best Weather Cast in 2001. She became weather anchor in 1998, as you just heard. She is a certified meteorologist by the American Meteorological Society and has the National Weather Association Seal of Appeal. That's not appeal. Seal of approval. She has a lot of appeal, too. I could say many more things about her, but I won't. I'm going to give the microphone to her and let her talk about the weather. Let's welcome Elizabeth Gardner.
Thank you, Jim. I really enjoyed getting to know Jim at the Y, except every day that I wasn't there, he's like, where were you yesterday? Where were you yesterday? I think he missed his calling as a personal trainer. But thank you guys so much for having me here. Jim pretty much introduced me. The one thing that he didn't say too much about was that I grew up in Raleigh. And so I lived in Raleigh for many, many years. I was born at the old Rex Hospital over on Wade Avenue. And we did move to Greensboro before I went to high school. But I went to college in Raleigh for 2 years and off to Colorado, and eventually to a distance program at Mississippi State for meteorology. I used to drive down Western Boulevard, all the time when I was growing up, past the Big Five, and thought, wow, what a neat place. Some of you who are from Raleigh might remember Uncle Paul as well, and I think I got to go to the Uncle Paul show and march around. That was so long ago. But I grew up, watching WRAL, and I would have never imagined that I would end up working there, even though as a kid, I'm sure that was in the back of my mind somewhere. I want to show you this. There's no audio to go with it, and I wasn't going to show it, but there's very little. There's actually not much talking to this. This is a promo that our promo department did last year for the Super Bowl, and I wish that they had aired it more. Our promo department likes to say, "We have the best Doppler radar, and you can trust us in storms." It's like, everyone knows that. And so this was so much fun. And it does not really need audio. It's just, you can kind of get the gist of it by just watching it. And maybe some of you have seen it, but again, it's my favorite promo that the station has ever done since I've been there.
You think Brett got it?
We forecast sunny days too. WRAL Severe Weather Team is certified most accurate for severe weather and everyday weather. We've got you covered 365 days a year. That's weather coverage you can count on.
Need a Brett restock aisle 5? Brett restock aisle 5.
So there's a little bit of audio to it, but I think you could probably hear it from the microphone. So I just love that one. As you know, weather is important to everybody. I thought in college that I wanted to be a news reporter, and I wanted to be a news reporter because I wanted to tell people stories that I thought that were important, that might inspire people to go out and change the world. And I realized we don't have that much of an opportunity to do that on local news. We talk a lot about accidents and shootings and the school board and things like that. But I had the opportunity to sort of change gears a little way into my career and to do weather. And I will say that actually has fit the bill. Doing weather is something that actually everyone is interested in. The weather affects everyone every day, no matter whether you need to know what to put on when you go outside or we have severe weather coming our way. And I just love that promo. It was so cute. We have a whole department that comes up with those things, but I just love that one. Let me tell you a little bit about what my day is like, and then I want to show you a little bit about how we do our forecasting. So I've been at WRAL for almost 25 years. I started doing weekends. I worked weekends in television for 11 years, and so I was very happy to get to go to the morning show. But my alarm goes up at 2:30 in the morning, and I'm at work at 4, which is late. When I get there at 4 o'clock, I am late. I'm a good half an hour late, but they're used to me being that late. So we're on TV, on the news at 4:30. Hopefully none of you are watching at 4:30 because it's way too early. I'm just surprised that anyone watches at 4:30, but some people do. And then we're on all the way until 10. We switch over to Fox 50 at 7, but we're on the news for, that's 6.5 hours? 6.5 hours, 5.5 hours, 5.5 hours, and then another hour at noon. So it's 6.5 hours total. I don't normally have to do the 9 o'clock newscast, but it's still a very busy day. Not only do we do that, but we also, of course, have content that we put on the website. We have social media that we're responsible for putting content on. We build all of our own graphics and we do our own forecasts. So it's super busy. When I walk in at 4 o'clock, I run straight over to my very dark mirror and I throw my makeup on and I try to curl my hair really fast because I'm always late. And then I have somebody that works with me almost every day. It's Peter Sherwood on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it's Anthony Baglione on Thursday and Friday. And so they get there a little earlier than I do. They start looking at the forecast and they'll plug the numbers into a spreadsheet, and then that spreadsheet feeds all of our graphics. And then when I get there, I say, okay, the weather story today. Like for example, today the weather story was you're going to walk outside to fog, and then it's going to be a much nicer day than it was yesterday. Our skies are going to clear by 9 o'clock, and our temperature will climb into the low 50s, which is normal. And then what happens next? Okay, next thing that's going to happen is our winds are going to be southwesterly. We're really going to warm up, and then it's going to rain on Thursday. So those are the main things I want to talk about today. So in 1 hour, I have 8 different weather hits. So multiply that times, that's per hour. So multiply that times 5. So it's a lot of weather hits. So I decide which graphics I'm going to use for each weather hit, and I put those together. And so that's what I do right when I get in. And I'm usually building my graphics and tweaking things and working on the forecast. And the forecast is pretty much done, but up until around 6 or so. But I'm also doing weather at that time. We also do weather for Mix 101.5, and we do weather. We own a TV station in Wilmington, and we do forecasts for that station as well. They don't do news there, but we do weather inserts for their commercial breaks. So it's very busy. So when I'm ready to sit down and do forecasting, I look at, first of all, I chat with my very good friend Harry, who's our security guard. And Harry's always standing outside, whether it's in the summer. In the summer, it's not so bad. But in the wintertime, it can be 15 degrees at 4 a.m. when I come in. And there's Harry standing there in his big puffy coat. Hey, Harry. And we have something to say about the weather every day. Harry, how's it been? Yeah, it's cold out here. I'm like, it is cold out here. Ooh, look, Harry, this morning, pretty moon. I was like, "Ooh, Harry, did you see the moon? The moon's trying to come through," even though it was foggy. And so the best way to get a good handle on what's happening with weather is to know what's happening right now. Because if you don't have a good handle on what's happening right now, you certainly won't know what's happening in the future. So I start with Harry. Harry and I are like, yep, it's cold, it's clear. Okay, I go in, start looking at satellite, which shows us where the clouds are, and radar, which shows us where precipitation is. And then we start on our computer models. And you've heard us talk about the computer models, I'm sure. We use the American model and the European model, and there are a few others. The American model and the European model go out for 10 days. And so that's a lot of fun. We have a lot of secrets about what happens after day 7 that everyone wants to know about. Wait, it's going to snow sometime this winter, isn't it? I'm like, no, I don't know. The farther we get from what's happening right now, the less accurate the forecast is as well. So I'm going to show you some of these computer models, but generally the way they work is they're collecting weather information that's happening right now. So say in Wake County, we probably have maybe 20 weather observation sites. So multiply that by 100 counties in North Carolina, 50 counties across the country, then plus other countries. But if you think about it, there's not a lot of good ways to sample the weather over the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. There are some ships that do take some weather observations, but there's a lot of weather going on out there that we're not able to sample. Weather balloons go up twice a day. The National Weather Service sends up weather balloons, and that happens in Greensboro and in Morehead City at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. There's a lot of weather that happens between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. There's a lot of weather that happens between Greensboro and Morehead City, but that's all we get. All the weather balloons are launched by the government, by the National Weather Service, and they cost a lot of money to launch those, in probably 100 sites or more across the country twice a day. So we have what we have, but it's not good enough. What we do with the information, I say we as meteorologists as a whole, all of that weather information that comes from the weather balloons and that comes from our surface observations that are taken about once an hour go into a supercomputer. The supercomputer puts all that data through a physics equation that describes the atmosphere. The equation is very good. The problem is the data. Again, we just don't know enough about what's happening in the atmosphere because our technology is not good enough to sample enough of it. So we're pretty good, for a couple days, 3 days, 4 days, sometimes 5. But let's say that one of our observing sites in Raleigh is saying that today the temperature is 80 degrees. We know the temperature's not 80 degrees, but computers are making mistakes all the time. They might not be caught by someone, so we've got some bad data that's just gone into our equation. So it may not affect us for the first couple of days, but the more that we get, the farther down the line, the larger the error is going to get, so that by the time we get to day 10, the computer model thinks we're going to have 15 inches of snow in Raleigh. I tell you what, that happens all the time. As a matter of fact, I was shocked. I knew I was coming to talk to you guys today and that I wanted to show you about computer models. This time of year in January, there's almost always what we call a fantasy snowstorm that's out there that we get to look at and we're like, hey, I'll say, hey, Peta's with me on Mondays. Hey, Peta, did you see the GFS, which is the American model? Did you see it's got 15 inches of snow for us in a week and a half? Woo! And we laugh because it just doesn't happen. But here's the thing that has become difficult for us. Now that we have the internet where everybody can look at computer models, people start talking about it. Oh, it's going to snow in 10 days. And we're like, no, but it isn't. That's the thing. And if you have the Apple weather app on your phone or some weather app that isn't WRAL, it will show you what's happening 10 days out from one of the models. And there is no one looking at it. There's no one saying, there's not a trained meteorologist saying, no, that's not going to happen. That silly model does this all the time. So there's a lot of kind of crazy weather information that's flying around. When I started doing this 30 years ago, there was no such thing. But now that can be a challenge. And so we have to talk to people and say, hey, you might have seen that on your app. Take that app off your phone and put WRAL on it. Because our WRAL app is curated by us. It only goes out 7 days, and it's our forecast that we spend hours on every day. So we're like, no, the silly GFS always puts that fantasy snowstorm out 10 days, and we're not even going to talk about that. But that tends to be a bit of a challenge. So let's take a look at the GFS. And I will show it to you. This is a site. All these computer models are public domain, again, because they're run by the government. But this is actually a site that we pay for just because it's easy to use, and we can really see a lot of things on it easily. So we're going to take a look at. We'll look at it a few different ways. So this is going to show rain, snow, and pressure. And we're going to start this off. This started right now, well, just about an hour or so ago, right around lunchtime. And we'll pull it out. Let's see. I'm not used. There we go. So we had rain. You can see the rain shifting off the coast. And then it's quiet, 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 quiet. But we have this system. I'll back it up. See what's going on in California? They've got rain and snow there. That's the system that comes here Thursday. And we can watch it march across the country. Come here, computer. So we'll pause it. It kind of fizzles out a little bit. You can see that L that's sitting over Oklahoma. So that's it. And that's going to be late on Wednesday, like Wednesday evening, Wednesday night. All right, I'm jumping around, sorry. And then Thursday, there's Thursday morning, and you can see it crossing the Mississippi. Here it comes, and that's going to be Thursday at about 7 p.m. So it looks like we're going to stay pretty dry during the day on Thursday. And it moves on out Friday morning. That's Friday morning at 7 a.m. Still a little bit of rain there. And then you see how it changes over to snow in the mountains. And, a lot of people like to go skiing MLK weekend, so it's going to be a pretty good setup for skiing. They're not going to have a lot of accumulation, but, it gets people excited, and they'll be making lots and lots of snow. So we'll keep going with this, and off we go. And there's a big high-pressure system that builds in. High-pressure systems tend to mean that we have clear skies or quiet weather. You see that big H sitting over North Carolina? We'll keep pushing it along, and we have, ooh, look at that. That reminds me, what happens typically in the summertime is we get fantasy hurricane that pops up. See that great big low that's sitting off the coast of North Carolina? It's not even summertime. What is this model thinking? But we'll watch that low. Sometimes if we see a low like that, it will be a big snowmaker for us. If we have a lot of cold air in place, we have a big low that comes in from the south off the Atlantic or off the Gulf Coast, that's how we get snow. That can be an accumulator of snow. But it doesn't look like it's going to be cold enough for that. We have another low that zips on by. That's going to be, so we're into Thursday night, January the 20th. So we've gone way through time. And then after that, it's kind of quiet again. This is kind of honestly, for the next 10 days, kind of a boring forecast. There's not a whole lot that's really happening. Let's take a look at what the European model is saying. And you may say, well, wait a minute. Why are we looking at the European model? Well, they have smart people there, too. And they run a model off of a very similar equation that we do. So we're like, well, that's another story to tell. I get in elementary school, they study weather in second grade and fifth grade. So I get invited to go to schools, and so I apologize. I'm going to treat you like the second graders just for a second. So what I like to tell them about forecasting is, let's say, and there are no newspapers anymore. I used to say, hey, let's pretend that we're all on the school newspaper, and there was a fire in the cafeteria. We're all going to go down there and write a story. Well, maybe I had some art on the wall that got burned up in the fire, and so I'm going to write my story about that. My piece of art got burned up, and so did my friends, and da-da-da-da. Maybe it was pizza day, and you were really looking forward to the pizza. So maybe that's what your story is about. But 10 of us, 12 of us may go down there, and our stories would be completely different. But none of them would be wrong. They would all be correct. And so that's what forecasting is like. So we're all going to see things slightly differently. The models, the people who develop the models, see it slightly differently, but none of it's wrong. I mean, sometimes it's wrong. But honestly, it's only wrong because of the data that goes into it. The equations that are written, like I said, are very, very good. If we could sample every molecule in the atmosphere at a given second, I would be out of a job, and so would all the meteorologists, because the equation is that good. We can't sample enough of the atmosphere to come up with a perfect forecast. But we like what the Europeans do. They do a very good job with their modeling as well. So let's take a peek. Now, come on now. There we go. All right. Let's don't loop you. Stop looping. Come here. Can I catch it? Got it. Okay. So let's see what the differences are. We're going to be looking at the next event coming on Thursday. So again, we're kind of watching that system in California. It looks really similar to begin with. Lots of snow in the Sierra, lots of rain, mudslides, da-da-da-da-da. We'll pause it Wednesday evening, and again, that low is sitting right there over Oklahoma, so no big difference there. Stop. And we'll push it ahead to Thursday. There's going to be Thursday at a little after. Let's look at it at 7. Thursday at 7, rain's pretty much in the same location. So we're in good shape here. So the models are in pretty good agreement. It looks like the European is moving the rain out a little faster on Friday than the American model was, than the GFS was. So we'll watch that closely. We also have the chance for some severe storms with this, and so we'll be watching that really closely too. I'll show you our short-term models as well that are more high resolution. But let's see what sort of fun the European model gives us. This it should be all the way in. So this takes us out to the weekend. We're all quiet. Out to next Wednesday, next Thursday. Notice the one thing that the European doesn't do. You saw that big low with the circles that was sitting off the coast of North Carolina. The European model is like, nope, that's not happening. So that's really the only big difference. Other than that, things are looking pretty similar on the two models, which makes our job really, really easy. Sometimes when I do this, I'll show people, and they can be wildly different, especially from day 7 through day 10. But that make our life a little bit easier. Well, I tell you what, let's do. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to show you. I can stand up here and talk forever and ever too, and I want to save time for you guys to ask me questions. So this is the high resolution model, and for this one, I'm going to go in to resolution. So there's more data going into it, so it will be more accurate, but it takes a long time to run a model with that much data in it. And so you can only run it out about 48 hours because otherwise it would be useless. Modeling came from World War II when they were trying to make landfall in Normandy, and they wanted to do it under cover of fog. And so they had scientists who took the data and they wrote some physics equations, and they were trying to do an 8-hour forecast. Of course, that at that time there were no calculators, so they sat there with their paper and pencil, a room of them, fast as they could do it. They ran that data through those models as fast as they could, and it took them about 8 hours. So if they're trying to do an 8-hour forecast, by the time they finished crunching all the numbers, they were at their forecast time. So it wasn't useful yet. So we had to wait until we had computers fast enough to crunch the data before we actually had computer models. But those are the scientists that developed it for World War II back in the 40s. So pretty cool. So again, the more data you have, the longer it takes to crunch it, and you just can't do it if you got too much data. Now look at this. There is nothing going on. Look at that. So we've got, this goes all the way out to, this only goes out to tomorrow morning because this is about a 12-hour version. Let's see if we pick, let's see if I pick this one. I think this particular run will go out a little farther. Yep, this will take us out. Takes us out to lunchtime tomorrow. So we're going to be completely clear. But there are other things that we would like to know, not just about precipitation, but let's take a look at temperature. So we can take a look at the temperature, and we see temperature for RDU, and that's going to be that 55 that you see right there. That's going to be the temperature tomorrow, right around lunchtime. And we'll back it up, and we'll see how cold it's going to get tonight. And we tend to see the coldest temperature right before or right at sunrise. Looks like we're going to drop it to 32 for tomorrow morning. And that's pretty uniform. We're going to see 30s pretty much, low to mid 30s across the whole state. And then tomorrow afternoon's high, we're going to get close to the high there. It's got 55. I think officially we were going 57. Because again, we're going to look at a lot of different models. This is our short range model, but let's go back and we can take a look at what the European model says for that time frame. The European model says 55. We love it when they all agree. And then we'll switch it to the GFS, which is the American model, and it says 53, so 2 degrees cooler. So we can look at it that way, and we can get a lot of models' opinions, sort of like we're going down to write the story about the fire in the cafeteria, see what everybody thinks about this, and then we decide, oh yeah, this is what we're going to go with. Sometimes some models do better with different weather patterns than others. Some models are on a roll, and some are not. So we take a lot of that into consideration. Let's see what other fun things can share you. Oh, this is a fun one. I mean, there's so many things. So this is soil temperature. If it looks like it's going to snow, we can take a look at the soil temperature. Soil temperature is 48, so pretty warm right now. So if it was going to snow, if we had a big cold air mass that was coming in and it was going to snow tomorrow, it would be like, well, it's going to have a hard time sticking because our soil temperature is 48. So that's a nice tool to have. We can take a look at wind. Winds, oh, that's knots. Let's go miles per hour. Here's the wind gusts. We're only gusting tomorrow to 7, so it's not going to be a windy day tomorrow. Let's do, this is the most fun thing in my opinion. We're going to look at snowfall. Now, we don't have any snowfall here in our forecast time period, but let's see. Oh, no, this is the GFS. So watch this. So this can be fun. We're going to take a look at the snow that may happen in the mountains on Friday. Let's see if I can back it up to where it starts. So that snow is going to start early Friday morning, late Thursday night. It'll change over to snow in the mountains, and it will stop on about lunchtime on Saturday. So for a good bit of the day. We've only got a couple of numbers that show up there. So you've got 3.8 that looks like it's over in Tennessee. But there is let me see if I can scroll this up. There's the legend. So the light blues are going to be, for some of those are 4 to 5 inches. So that will make for some fun skiing. So let's pause it there, and we'll bounce back over to the European and see how different it is. Not much. Ooh, except look at that. Right up the I-85 corridor, there's a 1/4 of an inch. Woohoo! So there's our fantasy snow. That's not going to happen. But we have a pocket down in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park where it's purple, and that's getting up toward 8 or 9 inches. So very exciting. So you can see how they differ a little bit and why you want to look at more than one. So that's the way we do our forecasting. We pore over these models. We look at them. We have so many different parameters that we can look at to determine, that we can use depending on what sort of weather pattern we are in. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys and let you ask me some questions, because otherwise I'll ramble on and on. Why does the temperature drop right at sunrise? So if you think about it, the sun is hitting the earth all day long, and it's warming it up all day long. But it does, as it sets, its energy is less because of the angle of the sun. Well, obviously at noon we get most of the sun's energy. The sun's energy is highest, and so it warms things up. But as long as that sun is touching the earth, it is warming it. But once the sun goes down, then of course we start to cool. But it cools all night long, and we don't start warming the earth again until the sun comes up. And it has to get high enough in order for us to get some of those sun's rays to produce some energy to start heating the earth again. So right before or right around sunrise is when we have the coldest temperature. It doesn't always drop very quickly right at sunrise, but that will be the coldest that it gets all night before we start adding heat to the earth again and start to warm it up. So that's why this time of year we'll see our high temperature at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're past noon, but we're still heating the earth up until about 3 o'clock. Now, if it's summertime and our sun sets at 8:30, we'll have the hottest time of the day at around 5 o'clock. And a lot of people think, in the summertime, I'm going to wait till 5 o'clock till it starts to cool down. 5 o'clock's usually when we see the hottest time of the day. And then the summer doesn't usually start to cool down until, say, closer to 8. You have to get pretty close to sunset before it starts to cool down. And even then, it can take a while, as we all know. Yes. So we look at 4 of them really consistently because those are the ones that have the most money spent on them and the most attention paid to them. And then from those 4, we'll think about what's been happening. So the 2 long-range models that I showed you, one is the GFS and one is the American. One is the GFS and one is the European, or the GFS is the American. So the American, the European, to kind of see what may happen from day 4 and beyond, or day 3 and beyond. And we'll see how well they've been handling it. So I work 5 days a week, but I'm still going to be looking at the weather. The weather never stops. So I'm still looking at it on Saturday and Sunday. And I know how the models are handling things. So it's sort of an ongoing thing. When I'm off for a week, and if we're like running around in the woods, then I have some catch up to do. Like, what happened while I was gone? But it's all based on how have the models been handling it. And sometimes the European model is handling our situation well, and sometimes the American model is handling our situation well. And then I'll also look at the 2 short-range models. I showed you one of them, and the other one is not online because it's actually run by the vendor that provides all our weather information into our weather computer. Our weather computer is purely designed to put weather on TV. It's not something that you could go to the Apple store and buy. You can't buy that software anywhere. So it's a proprietary model that's just for people who subscribe to our particular vendor. And so I'll look at the 2 of those. Like today, I used the one that is our what we call our in-house model. But on Friday, it wasn't doing that well based on what we thought was going to happen. So I used the one that I showed you here. So we have an idea because today's Monday. Right now, it looks like it's going to rain starting just after sunset, and it will stop probably at around 7 to 9 a.m. on Friday. So I'll look and I'll see, are the models continuing to do this, or are they slowing it down? Are they speeding it up? And if over several model runs, these long-range models run every 6 hours. So on those long-range runs, if they're continuing to slow it down, run after one run, or speed it up, run after one run, then we'll say, okay, the models are really trending in that direction, and they have been trending that way for at least a day or so, that we might tweak our forecast a little bit. So it's just watching run after run of the models to see which way they're going and to see how they've handled things over the last couple of days. If they've been on target the last couple of days, then that's what we pick. Sometimes it's purely, sometimes you throw up your hands and you're like, this is just, everything is, going in opposite directions. And you may just meet in the middle and say, okay, I'm just going to say it's right here in the middle and hope for the best. That does happen sometimes. It can be, yes.
How do you handle your tornadoes? I've always
good thing for a weather forecast.
I hate tornadoes. My favorite weather to forecast is snow or hurricanes. Now, of course, we don't want hurricanes to come here, but for both of those systems, they develop and they're usually out there for a pretty long time, and you get to watch them day after day after day, and you see the trends, and you get to see how the model, how they're changing, how the pattern of the atmosphere changes and changes them. So I think they're both fascinating. With tornadoes, you have a good idea that the atmosphere is ripe for tornadoes, but sometimes it's really hard to know if one's going to pop up. You're just kind of sitting there on the edge of your seat, and it's kind of like watching a horror movie, and it's a jump scare, like, oh, whoa, there's one, go! And you got to jump in front of the camera. And then we use the Doppler radar in order to track them. And the Doppler is... you all probably know what the Doppler effect is, but when I'm talking to the second graders, I'm like, when you're standing there at the bus stop and you hear the bus down there, it sounds like this, and then it gets close to you and it goes, and the sound changes as it goes past you because the frequency changes when it moves, and that's how the Doppler radar works. So it's a radio frequency, and when it moves, it changes the frequency, and then it paints this picture of where the rain is for us so that we can see it. We can see if it's something that isn't round as well. It's not that new. When did we? In the early 2000s, the radar was all upgraded. So that we call it dual. It's called dual pole. We call ours the Dual Doppler 5000, and no one knows what that means because it's complicated to explain over and over because really mostly people just want to know if it's going to rain or not. But when we get into a situation where it might be it may be snow or we've got a winter storm coming, is it a raindrop or is it sleet? Or is it snow? And that can be very significant. So the radar in the early 2000s was upgraded so that it can see a raindrop. And we think of raindrops as, the little teardrop thing that, looks like that. But that's not the way water falls out of the sky. There's a lot of friction. So when it falls, it actually falls like a pancake because it's experiencing the friction of the atmosphere. But of course, if it's a sleet pellet, it's around the whole time. And so the radar can see, is it a sleet pellet or is it a raindrop? And it will show us that. And one neat thing about tornadoes is it will show us if there's something that isn't a raindrop in the atmosphere. And so we can use what we call the debris detector. If there are big pieces of something in the atmosphere, then we know a tornado has touched down and is sending that debris up. And so that's a really nice tool to have because we can say, hey, this is a serious situation. I can't tell you, I don't know what the stats are on how many tornado warnings are issued and how many tornadoes actually touch down and do damage. But, certainly, there are a lot more warnings than there are damage. So when we can see the debris ball and we know that the radar is detecting debris, then we can tell people, hey, we are confident there's a tornado on the ground here. Here's where it is. Here's where it's going. Here's how long it's going to take to get, up Creedmoor Road and, on toward Granville County. So you need to be in your safe place. So, but it's just one of those things. It's so, you're watching, and then it pops up. And honestly, we don't have very many tornadoes in the morning. Those are mostly in the evening just because of the heating of the day. There's so much more energy in the atmosphere in the afternoon and evening than there is in the morning just because of the sun rising and setting. And so I don't cover tornadoes as much, which I'm happy about. But I don't get to practice it as much as Mike and Kat do either.
Curious, is there an association of local meteorologists? Do you all know each other? Do you get together and compare notes and talk about the techniques that you use?
So and I'm sorry, I've been meaning to repeat the questions. Is there an association of local meteorologists? There is. The American Meteorological Society has local chapters. And we have a local chapter that meets over at NC State. It's a lot of NC State meteorologists. There are definitely some broadcast meteorologists that go. When I used to go all the time until I started working mornings, but their meetings are not until 7. And technically, I should be in bed by 7. So I try not to be going out to a meeting at 7. So so I miss going to it. But the Weather Service, they're very good partners of ours. We don't use their forecasts, we do our own forecasts. But they do workshops and that sort of thing. They're going to have a workshop in March, and they're going to talk about probably about the severe storm season and then the hurricane season, and talk about what's new on their end, because they're in charge of all the watches and warnings, because we have four stations really in our viewing area that have weather forecasts. You've got Spectrum, you've got NCNN and TVD and us. And if all of us were saying something different about watches and warnings, it would be very confusing. So the Weather Service issues those, and then we interpret them. So if there's a tornado warning that gets issued, then we will go in and track that tornado and tell you where is the warning, where is it headed, and do our own track of it and tell you what's happening. But they're the ones who actually issue the warnings on it. Yes.
You talked about the special computers and the software that is used to run these models. Do you have that locally that you use, or you use it only on a service? And it's a super iPhone, I guess?
Super iPhone, right? So the question was, where are the computer models run? So the way all of this actually started that we were able to show, and I'll try not to make this a super long answer, but it's kind of a neat story. The reason that we have computer models that we show on TV now is actually because of a gentleman named John McHenry, who works, I think he still works there, at the Supercomputing Center at RTP. And I mean, I'm talking about for the whole country. So he approached Greg Fischel 22 years ago, because I had just started here. And he said, would WRAL be interested in being an investor in our computer model that we're running? And it was one of the short-range models, like this one that I was showing you with the, no, I guess this was the GFS. That's the European. But one of the short-range models to be able to especially show convection or thunderstorms. Can we do a better job with thunderstorm forecasting? Because with these long-range models or these lower resolution models, there's no way to forecast convection or thunderstorms, because they just don't have enough resolution to show them. So Greg went to the company and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And the Goodmans, who own WRAL, are amazing. They love technology, and usually we can go and they'll buy us whatever toys we want. So it's a great place to work. So.
One more question.
Okay, let me finish this one real quick. What happened was, so they run on a supercomputer. They had to run on a supercomputer. And so the supercomputing center is probably twice as big as this room, full of computers that are taller than your head. So it does take a lot of computing power. And so they worked together to start doing that. We were the first station in the country to show a computer model on TV. And then John McHenry also contacted our vendors. There are 2 or 3 companies in the country that produce weather computers for TV stations. Then he approached them and said, "Show me the money, don't you want this?" And they said, "Yes, we do." So he was a very smart businessman. And so that's how the whole country was able to start showing weather models on TV, for better or worse. Would you do one more or not? Okay. Anybody else?
Do you have fashion models?
I'm a fashion model. What are you talking about? Just kidding. So in terms of our clothing, we used to have a clothing consultant. We had a clothing consultant for a while, and she did a pretty good job of helping us. For a long time, we wore only suits. I mean, when I started working in TV in 1990, and we wore suits up until probably like 2010. So that was forever. And then they said, "We want y'all to start dressing more contemporary." And we're like, what do you mean by that? So then they hired the clothing consultant, and she helped us transition to dresses that look good on television. And now we are going back to suits. I bought my first suit on Friday that I bought in, 15, 20 years. So suits are coming back. So it is up to us. We buy all of our own clothes. We do all of our own makeup. We don't have anybody. There's nobody that's coming in the station at 3:30 in the morning to do my makeup or hair. But even in the evenings, nobody does Deborah's makeup or hair or Lena's or anything like that. If you get to the network level, they do, but not locally. So we do the best we can.
One more quickie. Who is this very attractive-looking little person behind you? Anybody that you know?
Sorry. Yeah, that's my son. He wanted to come see Elizabeth Gardner, so he doesn't like to sit down all the time.
It's good to have you. Thank you all so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Good job. Elizabeth, it's not quite Valentine's Day, but February is coming, I
It's
think.
coming. I hope it's coming.
And this is to express our appreciation for your being with us today.
Thank you
It meant
so
a lot
much.
to a lot of us. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much,
Come
too.
back again.
I will. Thank you.
Then would you go ahead and tell us about our February program?
Okay. Oh, we have a terrible program next month. I'm so sorry to have to announce this, but last year, David did this program called Older Weds. How many of you enjoyed that? Well, I tell you, it came up to me that someone said, you have to have them come back. So next month, I believe that's the 13th, which is the day before Valentine's Day, we will have Dave and his crew will be presenting the Oldie Weds again. Thank you so much, David, for doing that.
It's now time for our drawing for our door prizes. Elizabeth, would you pull the number here?
I would be happy to.
The winning number is 77-35928. And we need one more winning number.
Congratulations. This is all the makeup you need.
027158. Right over here.
This is all the shaving cream and razors that you'll need.
Thank you. I'd like to express a reminder of the new resident orientation that comes up on Thursday at 10 o'clock. For any of you who are new residents or have not been to a new resident orientation, we invite you to join us here in this room 10 o'clock on Thursday. Thank you all for coming, and the meeting is adjourned.